Welcome back to Wargames Battle Reports. Got another old world game today against Michael. Today we're playing drawn battle lines with 3 strategic locations. And it's the Night Goblins facing off against the Vampire Counts. Do you want to go over the Night Goblins deployment?
Okay, so I'm returning with the Night Goblins again, just because of the new FAQ. So I've got a nice big block of Night Goblins with spears and shields. They've got my War Boss and Battle Standard in it. So the Battle Standard has got the Tapestry, which stops the stumps. The War Boss has got the Sword of Might, Paymaster's Coin, Meteoric Iron Armour. He's also got the Charm Shield and Lookstone. For some support for the Night Goblins, I've got to mention these have 3 Fanatics. I've got 6 Stone Trolls with great weapons. We've got a Giant, just to sort of give me a nice solid block in the middle.
And the toughness 7 now.
Yeah, the Giants are now toughness 7 thanks to the new FAQ. And as well, you've got the new regen rule, which I want to see what it does for the trolls. We've got my block of 40 Night Goblin archers with the spider banner, so they've got poison shots. They've always got my level 3 odd knob in there, so he's got the green amulet, which is like a dispel item. If I roll more than a 1, it just dispels Ed spells straight away, and that's for the unit. We've got a Mangler Squig, small block of Squig Herd, another Mangler, and then my VIP Warbass on Giant Cave Squig. He's got Trollhide Trousers, Wallopers, One Hit Wonder. He's also got a Charm Shield. So for my level 3 odd knob, I've given him a Lore Familiar. So I always tend to take Foot of Gork, Vindictive Glare, and Evil Sun Shining, which is a great trio for ranged.
For the Vampire Counts today, we've got 3 Spirit Hosts there, cowering behind the hill. 35 Skeletons with full command and the War Banner. And then they've got the White Lord BSB in there with a Charm Shield. Got 1 Banshee in the middle. 24 Graveguard with full command and the Monster Hunter's Tapestry. Got the level 4 Necromancer behind them with Ruby Ring, the staff that lets him reroll a failed casting roll each turn, and a Spell Familiar. Behind the woods there's 12 Crypt Ghouls with a Crypt Ghast. Then we've got the White King on Steed with Dragon Slaying Sword, Paymaster's Coin and Charm Shield. 6 Hexwraiths with a Champion. And then the General, the Strigoi Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. He's a level 1 Necromancy with Talisman of Protection, Biting Blade and a Spell Familiar. The spells, the Necromancer got Van Hell's Deathly Cabal, Unquiet Spirits, Curse of Years and Spirit Leech. And the Ghoul King got Van Hell's and also got Spirit Leech. Vampire Count's turn 1 movement. Cast Van Hell's onto the Ghoul King, and he's moved up a bit here. The Hexwraiths and the White King have also moved up. Over here, the Graveguard have moved up. The Necromancer tried to cast Van Hell's on them, but it got fated dispelled, but has cast Deathly Cabal on himself. And the ghouls have moved into the woods here. The skeletons have moved up a bit, and the spirit hosts have moved up onto the hill here. Another vampire count's turn. Reserve moved up here into range of the objective. Moved the banshee in the middle that I'd forgotten about before. And then the spirit hosts of reserve moved down to the other side of the hill. Tried to cast Ruby Ring over here, but it failed.
So this is my the end of my first movement phase. So I started off by passing my stupidity check, which is always good. I then managed to irresistibly cast Evil Sun Shining. So now I get -1 AP on the bows and reroll 1s to hit. For the random movement, my war boss has moved up into the woods, and my manglers are just sort of inching forward just to see what Ed does. For the rest of my army, I'm just playing a bit cautious, and I just want to try and take the objectives because I've got a few Fanatics, so they've just moved up a little bit. End of my first shooting round, I started off with a Vindictive Glare against the Hex Wraiths. I managed to cast it, and Ed managed to roll a double 1 to dispel, which meant he used the 5-inch template, but unfortunately he did pass his regen save, so nothing really happened with that. I then went for a Ruby Ring on the Hex Wraiths as well. I cast it, but Ed dispelled that. I managed to do a Foot of Gork in the centre just to block Ed's movement here. And then I managed to kill one Grave Guard. I managed to kill one Grave Guard with some shooting from my bows.
Vampire count's turn 2 movement. The foot moved backwards, going through the Grave Guard. It killed 2 of them, but then the Necromancer brought them back. The Necromancer cast Deathly Cabal on himself. Tried to stop it with this Shaman, but he rolled a double 1 for his Dispel attempt, and then ended up killing 2 of his own Goblins and taking a wound. Also cast Van Hel's for +1 weapon skill on the Grave Guard, and they've moved up a bit. And these units have shifted sideways a bit. Here, the Hex Wraiths have gone into the front of this Mangler. They couldn't really align very well with the distance they got, but 2 of them have got into combat with it. And then here, cast Spirit Leech onto the War Boss and then charged into it. And then over here, near the middle, the skeletons are slowly advancing, and the spirit hosts have moved sideways a little bit. Vampire count shooting. The Terrorgeist screamed into the war boss, managed to take a wound off it. He passed one of its saves with its charm shield. Tried to use Ruby Ring from here onto this Mangler, but it got dispelled. And then on this side, the Spirit Host Reserve moved sideways a little bit up onto this hill. Vampire Count's combat. Over here, the Terrorgeist and Ghoul King killed the War Boss, took 1 wound in return, managed to pass 2 of its regen saves. Here, the Hex Wraiths did 3 wounds to the Mangler, and then it's running away, and they've reformed to face this way.
So my Night Goblins turn 2 end of movement. We started off with rallying. The Mangler obviously didn't rally, but he managed to stop just at the board edge. The Foot of Gork moved closer to the wizard, but didn't do anything, so I've taken it out, ready for the shooting phase. Then it came down, I passed stupidity again with the trolls. For the random movement, my Mangler went into the Terrorgeist, and I also released the Fanatics. One managed to get through to the Graveguard, killing one, but these just stopping short. Over here, my Giant and Trolls moved up, hoping to sort of bait the skeletons, but it's probably going to take a couple of turns. I've just sort of kept these back, just sort of seeing what the Spirit Hosts do. Not that I think they can really do a lot. I've moved these past their Impetuous, so I've just turned both these units towards the Hex Wraiths, just giving Ed a choice of either or. I also managed to cast Evil Sons again for the Archers. So my turn 2 shooting, I failed to cast Foot of Gork. Ed dispelled Vindictive Glare. I failed to cast Ruby Ring, so it wasn't a very good magic round, unfortunately. But I did decide to shoot at the ghouls over here, wounding 2 with poison and killing 2. So end of Night Goblin turn 2. There was only the Mangler against the Terrorgeist combat, which unfortunately the Mangler Squig lost. The Terrorgeist just repositioned to sort of get ready to charge the side of the Squig herd.
Did take 1 wound from the impact hits. Vampire counts turn 3. Cast Deathly Cabal onto the Necromancer, who also brought back 2 of the Crypt Ghouls. Tried to cast Van Hels and Spirit Leech, but they both failed. Did manage to cast Spirit Leech over here from the Ghoul King, and then he's charged into the Squigs there. Here, the Graveguard were boxed in by 3 Fanatics, but then one of them rolled a double and died, and then the other one scattered into the other remaining one, so they both killed each other, and then the Graveguard have sort of reformed and moved forward a little bit. Here, the Hex Wraiths flew over the Goblins and used their Spectral Reapers attacks to kill 4 of them. And here, the Skeletons tried to charge into the Trolls, but they rolled quite poorly for their charge range. They didn't get very far. And then here, the Spirit Host is still just trying to get round the side and generally avoiding dying to massive amounts of static combat res. Shooting, tried to use Ruby Ring here, but it failed to cast. And then here, the Banshee screamed at this unit, killing 4. And the Terrorgeist screamed at this unit, killing 3 of them. And over on this side, the Spirit Hosts are very stealthily moving around the flank, going completely unnoticed. Combat, the Ghoul King and the Terrorgeist killed 8 of the Squigs. The last one ran away, tried to restrain but failed, so then it ran it down, and now the Ghoul King is over here.
End of Night Goblin's turn 3 movement. The Trolls passed their stupidity. Unfortunately, obviously the Mangler was going to fail its leadership, so it didn't rally. He went off the board. I then cast Evil Sons Shining again. And then over here, I charged the big block of Skeleton Warriors with my Giant and Trolls. And then I've just marched up with my Night Goblins here, just to sort of get out of the way of these ethereal units, and maybe hopefully come into the skeletons a bit later on. For turn 3 shooting for the Night Goblins, starting off with the magic, I did a foot of cork here, so I placed it hoping to either get the Spirit Host or the Grave Guard. I think I'm okay risking it with the Night Goblins there. I cast Vindictive Glare, managed to do in 1 wound on the Terrorgeist, and then I cast Ruby Ring, but it didn't do anything. You passed your regen, didn't you?
The Ruby Ring didn't do any wounds.
Oh yeah, the Ruby Ring only being strength 4 didn't do any wounds, but I think it was at least worth a try. And then I chose to shoot at the ghouls over here, trying hopefully so they wouldn't score that objective, but I only managed to kill 2. So end of turn 3 for the Night Goblins. Luckily this combat went quite well. I managed to kill 11 skeleton warriors, and then 4 crumbled because the skeleton warriors didn't do anything back to the trolls or giant expectedly, so that went well.
Vampire Count's turn 4 movement. The foot that was here moved and then hit the Graveguard and the Banshee. It killed the Banshee and 2 of the Graveguard, but then the Necromancer brought some of them back. Then cast Van Hels on them, giving them +2 weapon skill. Tried to cast Deathly Cabal on himself, but that failed. Did manage to cast Spirit Leech on this unit. The Terrorgeist had also tried to cast Van Hels and Spirit Leech, but it failed. And then the Graveguard, White King, and the Terrorgeist have charged into this unit. They passed their terror, even with their Spirit Leech there, and stood and shot against the Graveguard, killing 2 of them. Over here, the Hex Wraiths and the Spirit Hosts have charged into the flank, each flank of this unit. Again, they passed their terror test against the charge from the Hex Wraiths. The Terrorgeist screamed at this unit, killing 1 of them. Into the Vampire Count's turn, these 3 units went into here. The Ghoul King killed the Shaman to get rid of the Evil Sons, and then combined attacks from all of these killed quite a lot of the Goblins, and then they've fled. Restrained with the Graveguard and the Ghoul King, then the White King tried to pursue, but then rolled a 111 for its pursuit, so it didn't even catch them. Over here, the White Lord managed to put 1 wound on the giant, and then the skeletons put 2 wounds on the trolls, but then they continued to kill skeletons, killed another 11, I think, and then some more crumbled. And then here, in this absolutely disastrous combat, the Hex Wraiths and the Spirit Hosts had charged either flank of this unit, but combined only did 4 wounds. The Spirit Hosts took 1 in return, and there was 2 wounds put onto the Hex Wraiths. But then, because they both lost the combat, they each took another wound from Unstable and gave ground. To avoid still being in their flank, the Goblins reformed to face the Hex Wraiths. Also, the Hex Wraiths were netted because you can't attack ethereal stuff, but you can net them.
So we're at the end of movement on turn 4 for the Night Goblins. Thankfully, I did a rallying cry from the war boss. They passed rolling a 3, and have now reformed, turn around just to get charged again, but that's okay. Obviously, these Night Goblins have now turned the tables and charged the Hex Wraiths, which I think's gonna... but they should win, hopefully. So we're at the end of Night Goblins turn 4. In the shooting, I didn't do anything. But then in combat, the Night Goblins killed the Hex Wraiths and moved forward. Hopefully we're going to do something over here. They've still got 3 Fanatics, which is massive. And then I finally managed to get through the last of the skeletons. So I've reformed for the giant to come around here, and then just the trolls just turned around just to sort of expect something.
Vampire Count's movement. The Necromancer tried to bring back the ghouls, but failed its leadership test, and also tried to put Spirit Leech onto the archers, but that failed. The Ghoul King did manage to put Van Hel's on this unit, giving them +2 weapon skill. This unit here released 3 Fanatics, sent 2 of them through their own archer unit to try and hit the Ghoul King. So the Ghoul King took a wound, but 5 of the archers died in the process. And then another one of the Fanatics went towards the White King that was over here, but landed just short of it. And now this unit are reformed slightly so that if the giant makes a charge, it'll be in the front, and the White King has moved back. Here, the Ghoul King charged the archers. They stood and shot, but didn't do any wounds to it. Well, wounded it, but it passed its save. They also passed their terror thanks to the war boss being in range here and having failed to cast the Spirit Leech on them. And then down here, the Spirit Hosts have managed to charge into the side of the trolls. Shooting, cast Ruby Ring from the Necromancer here against the giant and managed to put 1 wound on it. And then here, the Ghoul King screamed at this unit and managed to put 2 wounds on them. The generals nearby, so their leadership's quite high. Combat. The Ghoul King was challenged by the champion in the archer unit. Only did 2 wounds to it and didn't take any wounds in return. But then they failed their leadership, rolled an 11, re-rolled with the BSB and rolled an 11 again, so they broke. Initially, the Ghoul King tried to restrain, but failed its restraint, overran, caught them, but then fortunately managed to pass its reform, so it's facing this way. In this combat down here, the Spirit Hosts did 2 wounds, 1 got regened, but they managed to finish off 1 troll, and then they won the combat, and the trolls have given ground. Again, with the general there, they had quite high leadership, so they were able to pass their break test.
So turn 5 for Night Goblins, end of movement. I declared a charge with the big unit into the Terrorgeist. They only rolled a 4 to start with, so I chose to re-roll it again at 8. So the big skull thrown in the middle did get in the way, so I was only able to sort of, that was like the max sort of facing I could get for them. The giant attempted to charge into the Graveguard. He did roll an 11, but it was like in half an inch out, so we failed the charge, just moving up next to the objective. The Fanatics, the Fanatic here managed to just go straight through here. I rolled a double for another one, and then this one moved in that direction as well. So my Fanatics have been absolutely... Yeah, I rolled a hit for it, so it just stayed there. So the Fanatics this game have been pretty terrible. So hopefully next time they'll do better. It's the end of turn 5 for the Night Goblins. Annoyingly, the Spirit Hosts won combat, So again, the trolls just gave ground. They did do 2 wounds, so I've got 1 troll left on 1 wound there. This combat here, the Terrorgeist and the General just about killed my General. Look, his meteoric iron armour did come in handy, but unfortunately wasn't enough. But with all my combat res, my 3 banners outnumbering all my ranks, I still won combat. So the Terrorgeist is on 1 wound and gave ground.
Vampire counts, end of movement. Cast Deathly Cabal onto the Necromancer and put Van Hels onto the Ghouls, giving them +2 weapon skill. Also managed to bring back the 2 dead Ghouls. Here, managed to put Curse of Years onto the Giant, and the White King has charged into it. And then here, this unit of Graveguard have charged into the flank of the Goblin Spears here to try and help out the Ghoul King. And then one of the Fanatics rolled a hit, and then the other 2 kind of swapped places, but they're still here. End of the combat, the White King hit with all 3 attacks, but then didn't do any wounds. The Giant thumped it with its club, but then only did 1 wound. It won combat by 2, but thanks to being Indomitable 1, it only took 1 extra wound. Here, killed off one of the trolls, and then they broke. They tried to use the BSB to reroll, but then they still fled. The Spirit Host tried to chase, but didn't quite catch them. And then here, they netted the Graveguard, and the champion challenged the Ghoul King. The Ghoul King killed the champion in a challenge, but didn't get much in overkill. Including the champion, only 2 goblins died and 1 Graveguard. But with the flank charge, the Graveguard won the combat. They passed their leadership though and fell back in good order. The Graveguard tried to go back into them but didn't roll very far. And then the Ghoul King restrained and has faced this way.
So this was the last turn of the game. There wasn't a lot that happened in this round. I didn't do anything with the Goblins because I just didn't want to risk losing them, and I just wanted to stay close to the objectives to at least score a few points. The Trolls rallied luckily, so they just turned around, which helps. The Fanatics, they're all just doing their own thing, just randomly moving around this hill, not doing anything. But luckily the Giant did kill the White King. He did luckily kill the White King just with his stomps, because he did pass his regen, because I got the Swingwood Club, but I didn't do anything with that, but luckily I got stomps.
Yeah. And the White King failed to get any Monster Slayer hits either. Okay, so end of the game, and it's ended up Vampire Count's victory, 1822 to 1386. Do you have any final thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was a difficult setup because we're obviously at a diagonal, and I just had a weak flank over to the left here, which Ed obviously took advantage of, and absolutely. I think I played well, but I think at the end of the day I just had so many bad dice rolls, like some really bad moments. I had my 3 Fanatics in the middle here surrounding the Graveguard. Obviously 1 rolled a double, killed itself, and the other 2 just killed each other. I was upset when I lost my war boss on Cave Squig, because he absolutely failed his regen saves. Even though they're better now, I was hoping that might have helped him. Obviously, I wasn't too fussed about the Manglers because they're not very big in points. They're just meant to sort of intimidate. But halfway through the game, I had given up, but I still enjoyed the second half of the game, sort of seeing what I could do with what was left. Always, I really enjoy using the Giant. The ethereal units, every time Ed brings them with the vampires, really frustrate me because you've got Spirit Hosts here who just absolutely make my trolls pointless. But luckily, they just didn't die outright. There was just a lot of magic that didn't go through, so I think this came down to a lot of dice rolls for me. But I still think I did as well as I could with what I had.
For me, things were going really well on this side, and I knew I was going to lose the skeletons here, and I did consider just ignoring this side and accepting I'd lose the skeletons. But then I decided to, play and actually fight some stuff, which ended up being a really bad idea because the ethereal units went into this unit and ended up doing basically nothing and dying for no reason. And then they're actually still here and almost killed the Ghoul King. The Ghoul King did really well over here, but then once it starts getting into units, static res just kills it because they can just challenge it out and it can't really cope with it. Anyway, another fun game, and thanks to Michael for the game, and thanks everyone for watching. Let me know what your thoughts on the game were, and see you for the next one.